Buenos dias. What's going on, everybody? This is your boy, Dr. Will Rogers, a.k.a. Master Teacher 33. Tonight is Thursday, September the 1st, 2022. At the time is 9 p.m. Central. This is part 2 of the introduction. Just kind of want to lay out the course outline, if you will, for tomorrow. And like always, we do kind of play it by ear because the big G may make some adjustments. But we do want to give you at least an understanding of what we're going to be doing for the next 7 days. So we are continuing talking about the science and the metaphysics of credit and the understanding that, as everybody knows, credit is such a deep topic. It has so many different layers of understanding. And whether we're looking at it and coming at it from an esoteric perspective, or we're looking at it from a regular traditional perspective when we look at your scores, we want to start off again. Tomorrow, the class will continue, but we will do the class early because tomorrow is the second day of my son's football season. And so Friday night is always football night in Texas. And so I will be moving the class time up for the pay-per-view session to the early start time. So, and again, everything's recorded, like always. If you miss a class, no biggie. You'll be receiving a recording at the end of each session. And at the conclusion of the entire 7-hour series, you will be concluded, receiving, I should say, the entire 7 hours in one nice email. Tonight is just laying down the foundation so that way you understand all of the introductions that we've been doing, which we started at the end of August and we've been kind of going through and just really just kind of breaking down so that way you have a crystal clear clarity of the metaphysics of credit and understanding the behind the scenes of this magnificent opportunity that we all have to really live a life of wealth, health, wisdom, and relationships by simply maintaining a mental disposition of already having. Credit is when someone extends to you a specific benefit that you don't necessarily have or you haven't earned. But you do and you have earned it because you have established something called credit worthiness. And that credit worthiness it means to extend or to give you some consideration. Usually it's a financial based incentive, but as we talked about earlier today, it can be a non-financial based incentive as well, because as we now know, faith and credit are the same thing. Credit means that you are acting like you already have the thing that you are asking for. Credit, you are acting like you already have the amount of money that you don't have. So credit means that you receive a specific amount of consideration. That's why, and it is based upon your credit worthiness. And what we're going to be doing for the next 7 days, starting tomorrow, remember tomorrow's class will be around 2:30 or 3, which is my time central, which puts it at 12:30 or 1 Pacific, 4:30, 5 Eastern. And again, I'll send out the link so that way everybody can have it because we will be doing the show early. Day 1, we will go over, again, the basics of increasing your credit score. And we want to look at it from the existing credit profile. Day 2, we will teach you how to establish a brand new credit profile for the people who are interested in over, and understanding this whole like creditkarma.com, for example, which gives you a credit profile that allows you to see your score. So what if you were to start with a blank inflate and establish credit cards and loans and furniture and other accounts, auto and home. All of these are different types of credit that we're going to be going over. So we will be talking about that on day 2. On day 3, we will talk about how to increase your income by establishing different lines, or what I call streams of income. And these different lines or these different streams of income are reported to places like Credit Karma or Expedient and all of these other different places, the TransUnion, the main 3, the big 3. So on day 3, we'll be breaking down how I do that and how you can do the same thing, so that way you can generate more credit because of greater income. And then it sounds interesting. And once you really see how credit works, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, the same way I was when I just went through this for the last 2 years. Then we'll do on day 4, we'll show you how to establish what is called trade lines. And I'll show you, all of the tricks of the trade to establish credit history, good credit, so that way you are able to then go out and qualify, if you will, for more of whether we're looking at trust or whether you're looking at establishing, new trade lines and what these trade lines mean, and similar to establishing what they called an aged corporation. And it's amazing because when we talk about all of these credit lines and how these trade lines build your credit, it's amazing what is done by people who understand financial trade and what they call vendor trade lines and, business trade lines, if you want to establish business lines of credit, so that way your business credit card and your business, can basically have a 750 and higher. Then you can get into something called what they call vendor trade lines, and we're going to establish how places like Experian, when they report on your credit, and how you can establish both, not only a personal credit line, but also a business credit line, and how do you establish business credit accounts, and why this is so important to establish your own, and if you would like to, your company's credit worthiness, so that way you have business credit profile and a personal credit profile. Then on day 5, I'll be interviewing Brother Jibade and have him share some of his tricks of the trade when it comes to what he's done to establish his business trade lines and business line of credit and all of that good stuff. And then on day 6, we'll really get into the nuts and bolts of removing negative items off of your credit. How do you do that behind the scenes so that way it drops out fast, like within 3 to 7 days, so that way any of the improvements that you do on your credit, they're not just sticking around and just lingering on your credit report. You can remove that information off of your credit, and how to increase good credit. So how do you report good credit? So there's a company here in San Antonio that's called, what's that company called? Rent to Own. And you guys may have one of those in your city. So they do not report to the credit agency. So when it comes to increasing, your credit score, let's say from, 500 to 650 or, 750. Well, there are some techniques to doing that so that way you can increase or rebuild your credit score fast or faster than average, as I found out. Because, again, this is not taught to the average Joe and average Josephine. Because all of the stuff that we did I had nobody, I've never heard of anybody doing that. And so when I asked the lady I told you guys who was the credit expert, her name was Jill, and I asked her, well, how come, like, people don't, and she worked for one of the big three credit companies, and so I got to go behind the scenes and look at, how to increase your, credit score, if you will, by, as we did, over 200 points in less than 30 days. And it is crazy because I'm like, well, how come people don't do this all the time? Well, they don't want you to be able to increase your credit score in 30 days because then everybody would have good credit. So we're going to break that down as well. And then on day 7, this newfound credit that you have, how do you use credit? Because once you use it, it becomes debt. Now you got to pay it back. So how do you use debt to pay back debt? Man, this is going to be huge. Because once you understand how to use debt to pay back debt, that changes the game because you are able now to do things that the dominant culture does where you're able to lend money to yourself, pay yourself back. You become your own bank. So when you learn how to become your own bank, that just simply means that instead of going out and borrowing money from a traditional bank, you can lend money to yourself because you got all of these accounts. So this is, how, you become your own bank. Once you become your own bank, bam, that's when it's downhill. That's when it's party time. Because now you are in a place of status and options. When you get status and when you get options, that's when you are in a place where what I call peace and prosperity. And the 7 P's that I talk about all the time when it comes to purpose, principles, process, procedures, and product, which leads to profit, prosperity, and peace, that's what we talked about. Because then you have a system in place, as we mentioned earlier today. And as we talked about it during today's show, when we talk about credit is power, the people who have stress in their life, they don't have power. Power is a system that is implementable and duplicatable. That's power. Because when everything goes wrong, you go back to your system. You should never leave your system. But some people venture off and become a victim of violent crime. As we mentioned today, and we talked about criminals look for people who are not organized. And we went through, based upon what I learned while working in the prison, and the Harvard study that was done, that when they talked about interviewing violent criminals, and they say, hey, they look for people who have, a short stride length. That's crazy. People who wear, they're not neat in their appearance. Because that means if you're not neat in your appearance, you're not neat in your mental disposition. If you are unorganized in your appearance, you're unorganized in the brain. Violent rapists and murderers, they look for unorganized minds. Credit is an organized mind. Poor people will always be poor because they're not organized in their minds. That's credit. So the way that you become rich, the Bible says the same thing. That's what the definition of faith is to become organized in your mind. And as we mentioned earlier today, and as we talked about all throughout this week, tomorrow is going to be powerful because we get into day 1, how to increase, day 2, how to establish, day 3, how to establish not only income but employment verification, day 4, how to establish trade lines and what trade lines are, day 5, breaking down Brother Gibberday's information, day 6, removing the negative, increasing the positive, then day 7, becoming your own bank. So that was it for tonight, brothers and sisters. I just want to break down the fact that the agenda for the next 7 days, And more importantly, the fact that pay-per-view class will be earlier in the day. So tomorrow, again, usual time, about 2:30 my time, which is 12:30 on the Pacific, or 3 p.m. my time, which is Central, which would be 1 p.m. on most of you guys who are on the California timeline, or what is that, Pacific. And then you guys know Eastern is the other way. Eastern, if it's 3 p.m. Central, it'll be 4 p.m. Eastern. So tomorrow, day one, will be an early show because there won't be an evening show. Again, football season starts, so my bonus son's, one of his first football games will be tomorrow night. So we'll be there at the stadium watching the game. So all right, everybody. Thank you guys so much. And if you haven't joined, make sure you go click on the link, Mathematician Thursday. Click on the link that says donation, make the payment, or just email me. Let me know, hey, Doc, I need to make the payment in 2 payments or whatever. You know, payment plans, that's not a problem. So we start tomorrow. How to use debt to get rich. Love you. Appreciate you. We see everybody tomorrow about 2:30 Central. God bless.